Welcome to Life Extension Live. It's so great to have you today. I'm Dr. Mike, and I'm here with my co host, Dr. Crystal Gossert. And it is National Nutrition Month. Did you know that? Yeah, all through the month of March, we've been celebrating nutrition. And it turns out my co host, that's her degree. She's a doctor in clinical nutrition. So, of course, we had to do a show on this. Why wouldn't we? Throughout the whole month, the what is it? The Academy of Nutrition, Dr. Chris, is that right?
Yes, the Academy of Nutrition and Dietetics.
Yeah, they've been going week by week with certain topics. Week one was about, let's see, I have it here, eating a variety of nutritious foods. Week two was, getting connected to a registered dietitian. Week three, planning your meals. Week four, I like that one, creating tasty foods at home that are healthy, right? And
Yes.
then week five, which is this week, is kind of putting it all together. So, Dr. Crystal and I thought we would kind of share with you a little bit about the health of this nation when it comes to nutrition. What are the things that we're doing right? What are the things that we're not quite doing right? And how we can fix that. So, Dr. Crystal, on today's show, number one, misconceptions about the dietary guidelines for Americans. Number two, what Americans are over and under consuming. And number three, why we believe supplementation is vital. So, this is a lot to cover today. Dr. Crystal, I'm going to let you kind of describe the U.S. dietary guidelines and what that actually means, and how are we doing as a country fulfilling those guidelines?
Yes. So these guidelines have been around since the 1980s. And there are many people who praise them and people who find ways to find fault. And, I have to say, as a nutrition professional, that kind of involves more of the functional side of nutrition, really the therapeutic nutrition. I think there is a place for the dietary guidelines. It creates kind of an even playing ground. And then depending on the type of focus you have, whether you're a registered dietitian, whether you are a certified nutrition specialist, you can take that as a springboard into helping to develop personalized
Right. Yeah.
nutrition programming. But there are some things, they're really great components. It, as you mentioned, it encourages variety. I love the statement now on the guidelines, make every bite
I
count.
like that too. Makes
And
sense, right? Yeah.
yes, and it's kind of what we talk about, Dr. Mike, with it's almost practicing the pause in action with your food. When
Yeah.
you get ready to
Practice the
purchase
pause
something,
with
when you're getting ready to
Be-
pick up
before
something.
before you bite that donut, pause. Or maybe let's say it this way, because not one donut might be okay for you, but before you go into the fourth donut, pause. Right, something like that.
Well, yes. Well, it just makes you pause and think about, how does this fit into what I'm having for the day? Am I going to have to maybe cut back a little bit on dinner because I
Yeah,
am having this donut? It just
good point.
forces you to think about what
Yeah.
you're consuming on a regular basis.
Right, right. I see it this way. It's like when you're about to eat something, you got to ask yourself, is this going to supply my body with good things that it needs to be healthy? Right? Or is it just a bunch of processed stuff that my body doesn't even really want? I'm just going to pretty much get rid of it, and it's just kind of like empty calories at the end of the day. I think
Yes.
it's kind of how I like to look at it. So make every bite count. What are some of the other highlights?
Half of your plate should be fruit and vegetables. Now, Dr. Mike, we talk about the 80-20 rule. So I think we
That's
like
about
a
it.
little bit more, but it's very,
Well, that's pretty good, right? I mean, that's nice.
yes, half should be whole grains, lean proteins, again, the variety. And then you want to limit foods high in sugar, high in refined carbohydrates, high in saturated
Right.
fat. We're not saying all saturated fat's bad, but it's about your choices, your everyday choices. If that's all you're consuming, that's a problem.
That's a problem. Yeah, and the key word in that recommendation is limit. It's not saying you can never have a Coke at once. I mean, once a week soda full of sugar is really not going to hurt you, right? It's
Right.
the big gulps every single day for breakfast, which I've seen. I have friends that do that, right? So that limit is the important word.
That's true, and it's all about, what you're consuming habitually, Dr. Mike. So that is the point. Is
Important.
this if am I always drinking sodas? Is that your go-to
Yeah,
drink?
yeah. That's not limiting. That's
Right.
habitual. That's the difference, right? Now, there are misconceptions too, and I think the first one is really important. Tell us about who the guidelines are actually written for.
They are written for healthy Americans. So, one misconception is that they are written for all people. And we know that about 60% of Americans are dealing with some type of chronic disease. So, when you look at the guidelines and you say, hey, this doesn't really match what my doctors or my nutritionist telling me to eat, that's why.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. It's not necessarily geared towards somebody with diabetes, for instance, or something like that, right?
Right.
It's really geared towards just the average person who's relatively healthy. But of course, you can, as you said, you can use this as a springboard.
Hmm.
Working with a registered dietitian, you can now tailor it
Right.
to what your specific recommendations are for whatever you're dealing with, maybe in fulfilling kind of what your doctor wants you to do, or a nutritionist wants you to do. So I think that's really important. The other thing is that we find in this is that the academy recognizes that even in a healthy person, sometimes eating healthy and doing the right things may not be enough, right? Don't they mention something about fortified foods and dietary supplements that they could play a role here?
Yes, and that was the most amazing part of the guidelines, I have to say it. Dr. Mike, when you see the recommendations highlighting that there are limitations, that there is a role for fortified foods, there is a role for
I get it.
dietary supplementation.
I recognize that. You recognize that. That there's food first. We've said that all the time,
Mhm.
but we have to recognize it's just not the same world that it was 100 years ago. Too,
No.
and soil conditions, environmental toxins, the lives we live. You put all that together. We need a little boost. At least that's my humble opinion about this. And that's where I think fortified foods and supplements can play a role. Right?
Yes,
Yeah.
absolutely.
All right. Now let's shift focus here, and I want to talk about foods that, as Americans, that we are eating way too much of, and then other foods that we're not eating enough of. Tell us a little bit about kind of that average diet for Americans out there.
Yes, and we do have a graphic to show you, Robson, if you can put that up. Most Americans do not follow a healthy dietary pattern. And I have to emphasize the word pattern and go back to this to what we talked about as your habits. So when you're looking at
Right.
the pattern represents what you're eating on a regular basis, right? And so average diet quality has slightly improved over the last 10 years.
Okay.
But there's space for improvement, and then there's also space for your excursion. So that's kind of
Right.
when we talk about that pattern, Dr.
Yeah,
Mike.
yeah, and that's also like the excursions. That goes back to the word limit, right? It's not. I mean, we don't want to be so strict that we don't enjoy some of the nice things in life, like cheesecake, one of my
I know.
favorites. Yeah, right. I mean, listen, if you're doing things right, once in a while, a nice piece of cheesecake, enjoy it, get into it. It's wonderful, right? So it's important that we're not trying to, say you can't enjoy food, enjoy life. That's not true. But what's your habit?
Yes.
That's key. If cheesecake is a habit every night, might be a problem.
I know someone. I'm not going to
Uh-oh.
say their names.
Yeah. But once, a month, once every couple of weeks, three, I think that's perfectly fine, right?
That's right. So, Dr. Mike, I have a game to play. I want like, will you pass over the reins to me?
You got him.
So we mentioned that most Americans do not follow a healthy pattern.
Right.
So I want to quiz you on which particular food groups you think that we are, really doing great. You can give us a thumbs up, we're doing well, or thumbs down, we're receiving too little. Okay. Yeah. Or you can do. in between. Okay.
All right.
Okay,
Go for
here
it.
we are. Vegetables. So the
What?
guidelines based on about a 2,000 calorie diet, 2.5 cups a day, right?
Right. I mean,
That's
that's
a
easy.
given.
Yeah, we're not near the 80-20 rule we like. That's for sure.
No, nowhere
Yeah.
near.
Yeah.
90%, almost 90% do not consume the recommendation for vegetables.
And what's the go through the recommendation again? What is it?
Yes, so that's 2.5 cups per day.
Yeah, that's not that much. I mean, that's really. I mean, that's a little handful of broccoli, maybe some leafy greens, and you're done.
Right.
Well, have a leafy green salad with some peppers in it, and whatever. But you're done, right? I mean, it's really not that hard to achieve that. I know I love my leafy greens, and I make big salads with it. I know those salads alone get me over that recommendation. Okay, that
Yep.
was an easy one.
Okay, how about fruit? And that's about 2 cups a day.
I would say we're probably better with fruit, but still, it's probably down to something like that with fruit.
No, we're not doing, and you would think we
Oh,
were.
I thought people would eat more
No,
fruit. Yeah.
too little. 80% do not meet fruit recommendations. That's just 2
Wow.
cups, people.
An
We
apple and
have
an
to do
orange.
better.
An apple and an orange, you're done. A banana and some grapes, I mean, it's not crazy.
And what surprised me here was fruit juice actually counted under this section. So what
Uh,
people are drinking is probably the fruit juice that has very little fruit.
yeah, a lot of the fruit juices I see at the grocery store, some of them say as low as 5% real fruit or 5% total, whatever that is. The rest
Right.
is water, sugar, and whatever else they're putting in it, right?
Yes.
Yeah. All right,
Fruit
come on,
flavors.
Americans, just eat an apple. We actually did a show showing that an apple a day really might keep the doctor away. Remember that?
Yes, we did,
Yeah.
Dr.
Okay. All
Mike.
right.
Okay, so I'm gonna skip to grains, whole grains.
I mean, I think again, I think it's down, but probably a little bit better than the fruit and vegetables.
Right, it's way down. Okay, so that's just 3 ounces a day. Listen to this stat, 98% of
Oh,
people fall below recommend, which means only 2% of people,
see,
2% of Americans.
I honestly thought like vegetables would be like 95% don't make it, fruit 85, whole grains. I really thought maybe 75. So I'm way off. Yeah.
No, so and this is your brown rice, your buckwheat, your barley, your whole
Three
wheat
ounces,
pasta,
3 ounces. That's
3
like,
ounces.
it's like you could hold 3 ounces of rice, of wild rice in your hand.
Right,
Of whole
so
grain. Yeah. Wow.
simple substitutions, you all. I know brown rice is a little bit more difficult to cook, but
Yeah.
it's a healthy swap, and you don't miss having the carbs on your plate. Because I
Wow.
like
That's
my
good.
carbs, Dr. Mike, you know
Yeah, I know.
that.
I know. I do too. And there's nothing wrong with that. But that actually is very surprising. What else you got?
Okay, so refined grains, which is the opposite of the whole
Oh, I
grains.
mean, sky high. I mean, sky. This.
Yes, 2 thumbs up, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
Or 2 thumbs down, really.
Oh yeah.
So,
Sorry, I meant
way
down.
too much.
No. Well, wait. No, it's two thumbs up because it's high, but it should be that.
Right.
It's hard to get in my camera.
I know. So 74% of Americans exceed the limit for refined grains.
I mean, so
So as
okay.
you
Okay.
mentioned, it's the simple swaps.
It based on everything, all those stats, we obviously we need a 180. We need to
Yep.
switch all that. The refines need to go down. The fruit, vegetables, and whole grains need to come up. It's that simple.
Very simple.
Yeah.
Okay, dairy, 3
Uh,
cups a day.
that's cheese included, right? So
Yes.
that kind of stuff. I would say that's probably yes. I think that's probably we're there on that one.
Believe it or not, too little on the dairy. Very
Really?
shocking. Okay, what about let's see what's on my list. So we can talk about protein. Do you think that people are receiving enough protein? And we've talked about this, Dr. Mike.
I do know over the past 5 to 10 years, maybe I'm thinking way too much into this, but over the past 5 to 10 years,
Don't overthink it.
well, it, because I don't think I don't think it's a simple answer. I think okay, lean, good, healthy proteins probably down, bad proteins probably up. So it brings it to a middle.
You're good, Dr.
There
Mike.
you go. Right? Yeah.
Ding,
Because
ding, ding.
protein's not all equal, right? So just like fat's
Right.
not all equal. So I think that yeah, it's middle. Yeah.
Yeah, so when you think about protein, it's a big category, right? So you because milk could actually fall into protein. So you do have some overlap
Yeah.
with some of the foods, but like the eggs, the poultry, too much,
Hmm.
not enough seafood, not enough nuts, seeds. So
Plant
though
plant-based sources.
right, exactly.
There you go. There
So
you go. All right. Oh, listen, all of that makes sense in the long run. I thought we were doing a little better, but apparently we are not. Okay, great information. So let's go over. So there's the dietary components of public health concerns for under consumption. Now let's talk about some of those important nutrients, even micronutrients, right?
right, Dr. Mike.
That we are not getting enough of. What are the big ones that we are definitely as a country low?
Calcium is number 1, potassium, and these are the recommendations are these nutrients there is a public health concern, like code red on these nutrients,
Yeah,
calcium, potassium, fiber, vitamin D, code red, you need to do better because deficiencies in these nutrients or inadequacies in these nutrients relate to many health issues from us, from bone health issues to heart health issues to immune, occasional immune issues. So
right.
you really have to be careful.
Yeah. So let me because obviously then this is where we believe fortified foods and supplementations can kind of help, right? Well, first of all, if you're healthy and you meet those recommendations, that's going to help.
Yes.
But it's my opinion. I think Dr. Crusoe, you agree that a lot of the more mainstream organizations and academies, they are basing their numbers off really just what do you need, not to develop issues from deficiencies. What we're more interested in at Life Extension in our own private lives is optimizing nutrition. Now, that's not just picking numbers and saying I want this much vitamin D or just because we're crazy. It's actually based on science
That's
that
right.
there's good research that shows we should be recommending a little more, and in some cases, a lot more of some of these nutrients. So now let me think about this for a sec.
Okay.
So the Academy actually said something really interesting about all of this fortified foods and supplements. I'm going to quote them, okay, Dr. Crystal.
Hmm.
It says, in some cases, fortified foods and dietary supplements may be useful in providing one or more nutrients that otherwise may be consumed in less than recommended amounts. Now, again, recommended amounts I still think's kind of low. I actually think supplementation. What do you think, Dr. Crystal? It's not just maybe give it a shot. It's critical.
It is critical, and that's what we see in this latest report with the guidelines is that supplementation is critical. It is supported. It hasn't always been that way, Dr. Mike,
Yeah, I
but
know.
I'm an advocate of meeting people where they are.
I like that.
It doesn't mean you stop helping them and encouraging them to eat the variety and to eat the whole grains and to consume the fruit and vegetables, but when you are head to head with someone and you realize that's just not what they're doing,
Yeah.
you have to course correct.
Yeah, yeah. It also depends on, in some cases, let's use vitamin D as an example. I mean, I've seen people in my years ago, in my practice, now just with life extension. I mean, people come in and their vitamin D levels are like, you can barely report them. They're like 5, 10. I mean, so low. It's like, how are your bones not breaking, right? I mean,
Right.
you can't eat enough cheese to cover that. I mean, that's where, and if you do, now you're doing too much saturated
Or
fat,
you'll
right?
be
There's that.
constipated,
Yeah,
Dr.
it's just
Mike.
that, and that's where supplementation can get that quicker boost. I mean, food first. we are meant to eat food, not necessarily swallow capsules. However, we should appreciate that we're at a time in today's world where we do have those extra tools to help us, like capsules and tablets and powders and oils, to just boost that nutrition level up when we have that gap that needs to be filled.
Yes, Dr. Mike, and I just have to just say amen to that. And
Woo!
also that we are at a place now where the field of nutrition and the research identifying these nutrients and showing that they really do support health, the role of the supplementation and how it can really just take your health to the next
Yeah,
level
it's fantastic.
is
Yeah.
fascinating.
Yeah. All right. So great show. I know I learned a lot. I'm surprised I was that far off on your little quiz, but
That's okay, Dr. Mike.
I don't know. I learned something there, and hopefully, watching this, you learned something as well. We do have. Is this? I think it's an article. It's a wellness article that Life Extension puts out. You can go to lifeextension.com/your nutrition, and you can check out an article that covers this in a little more detail. Dr. Crystal, thanks for joining me today. And all of you, thanks for joining us. Hey, don't forget, comment, talk to us. We love when you do that. Like, share, and remember, we go live every Wednesday at 3 o'clock. I'm Dr. Mike. Thanks for watching.